He told me not to show up, said I'd ruin Mom's birthday, so I stayed quiet and let my success speak. I still remember the message like a knife in my chest. Don't come, Bonnie. Mom doesn't want any drama. You'll ruin her birthday again. Again. As if existing was a crime. For a few seconds, I just stared at the text, my hands shaking. The same brother who once borrowed money from me for his dream business was now telling me to stay away like I was some kind of embarrassment. If you've ever been treated like you don't belong in your own family, you'll understand how that message felt. Before I go further, if you've ever been told you're not enough or made to feel invisible, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this story. Because what happened next will make you believe in karma. I took a deep breath that night and told myself, no reply. Not this time, because silence would be my loudest answer. Mom's birthday parties were always a show. Expensive decorations, fake laughter, and people pretending to care. For years, I used to bring thoughtful gifts, help organize, even pay for catering when money was tight. But nobody ever remembered that. They only remembered the one time I spoke up, the time I dared to tell Mom that her golden child, my brother, wasn't perfect. Since then, I was the problem. This year, though, things were different. They didn't know what I had been working on in silence for the past 3 years. Every sleepless night, every tear, every humiliation had built something huge, something they could never take away. But still, when I saw their pictures on social media that night, all dressed up in designer clothes, standing beside the giant, happy 60th Mom balloon arch, I felt that old sting of pain again. My sister-in-law had even captioned it. Perfect family. Wouldn't change a thing, I laughed quietly. Perfect family? Sure. If you ignored the daughter they cut off like she never existed. Then came the twist I didn't expect. A phone call from Dad. His voice was cold, careful. Bonnie, your mom's friends are asking where you are. I told them you couldn't make it. Personal reasons, right? Like being unwanted counted as personal, but I kept my voice steady. That's fine, Dad. Tell Mom I hope her day's special. He hesitated. You didn't send her anything? I smiled to myself. Oh, I did. Because while they were taking photos in their rented ballroom, something was already on its way to Mom. Something that would change how everyone looked at me forever. And the best part? They had no idea what was coming next. But when I walked into that restaurant uninvited, every head turned like I didn't belong there. My dad's smile froze. My mom dropped her fork, and my brother whispered something that made the whole table laugh. They thought I came to beg for forgiveness, but what they didn't know was that the place they were celebrating in belonged to me. My name's Bonnie, the failure of the family. The one who, according to them, wasted her life chasing silly dreams. 3 years ago, when I walked out of that same house with nothing but a laptop and a backpack, Dad told me I'd come crawling back in weeks. Well, I didn't. Before I continue, if you've ever been told you'll never make it or that you're not enough, make sure you subscribe and share this story. Because what happened next will make you believe in yourself again. When the waiter approached and said, "Ma'am, your private floor is ready," the room went completely silent. My dad frowned. Private floor? For who? I smiled, looked straight at him and said, "For me." You could have heard a pin drop. My brother laughed awkwardly. "Right, Bonnie, sure. You probably work here now, huh?" I leaned forward and said softly, "Actually, I own it." Mom's hand shook as she picked up her glass. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted them to feel that silence. The same silence I lived in for years while they laughed behind my back. Then I said, 3 years ago, when you kicked me out for refusing the family job, I built something better." Their faces changed instantly. Confusion, disbelief, a hint of fear. And that's when the manager walked in and greeted me. "Good evening, Ms. Bonnie. Shall we prepare the upper hall for your guests?" My dad's jaw dropped. My mom looked around, trying to understand what was happening. But I just stood there, calm, confident. The same girl they once said would ruin everything, now standing in front of them, running it all. Mom's voice trembled as she asked, "Bonnie, you own this place?" I smiled gently. "Yes, Mom. In fact, this entire restaurant, the one you're celebrating in, was my first investment. I bought it 2 years ago when it was about to close." My brother scoffed, trying to laugh it off. "Yeah, right. You bought this?" I leaned forward and said calmly, "You'd be surprised what someone can build when no one believes in them." The manager placed a folder on the table and said, "Here are the quarterly reports you requested, Ms. Bonnie." My brother went pale. My dad's eyes darted from the papers to me, realizing it wasn't a joke. If you're still watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because this is where karma finally speaks. I looked at Mom, who couldn't meet my eyes. "I wanted to come tonight," I said softly. "But when you told me I'd ruin your birthday, I decided to give you something unforgettable instead." She whispered, "What did you do?" Just then, a waiter brought over a box wrapped in gold paper and placed it beside her plate. "A delivery from Ms. Bonnie," he said. Everyone stared. Mom opened it slowly. Inside was a key, attached to a small card that read, "For the woman who taught me what silence can build." My dad's voice cracked. "What? What is this?" I said, "It's the deed to this restaurant. I'm transferring it to Mom. It's my gift, not out of guilt, but gratitude. Because without that rejection, I wouldn't have learned how to build something of my own." The table went silent. For the first time, Mom's eyes filled with tears. Not pride, but regret. My brother looked furious, whispering under his breath, "You just did this to show off." I smiled again. "No, I did this to remind you. Never underestimate the one you silence." The same guests who once ignored me now watched in stunned silence. Some even clapped quietly. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about showing that sometimes walking away and working in silence is the loudest answer you can give. But little did I know, that night wasn't over yet. Because in just a few minutes, something would happen that no amount of success could prepare me for. The sound of heels echoed from behind me. I turned, and in there she was, Grace, my cousin. The one everyone loved. The perfect daughter my parents always compared me to. She smiled sweetly, but her eyes were sharp. Well, Bonnie, you really went all out, didn't you?" I kept my tone calm. "Didn't expect to see you here, Grace." "Oh, come on," she said, glancing around at the guests watching us. How could I miss the family show of the year? The tension in the room shifted. People whispered. Phones subtly came out to record. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You think this little stunt changes anything? They'll never see you the way they see me." I met her eyes and said quietly, "Maybe not. But I stopped needing their approval the day they stopped believing in me." She smirked, still dramatic as ever. "Still insecure as ever," I replied. The manager approached nervously. "Ms. Bonnie, the press has arrived outside. They want a few words about your new foundation." Grace's expression froze. "Foundation?" I nodded. "Yes, I'm launching a women's mentorship fund. For girls who were told they'd never make it." Grace laughed dryly. "So now you're pretending to be some kind of hero?" "No," I said. "I'm being the person I needed when I was alone." The murmurs around us grew louder. Even Dad's face softened, a mix of confusion and realization. He muttered, You started a foundation." "Yes," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "With the money I made from the company you said would fail in 6 months." Grace clenched her jaw, pretending to smile for the cameras that were now flashing at the entrance. "Don't forget who helped you get where you are," she hissed. I raised a brow. "Funny. I don't remember you helping when I was sleeping in my car." The silence that followed was deafening. The guests were holding their breath, watching two women who used to compete for family validation finally stand face to face. And then, before anyone could speak, my phone buzzed. A message popped up from an unknown number. "You might have built your empire, but you took something that wasn't yours, and I'm going to expose you." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. For the first time that night, I wasn't sure who was really in control anymore. The room around me blurred for a moment. Laughter, whispers, music. It all faded into the background as I stared at the message glowing on my phone screen. Grace must have noticed my expression because her smirk widened. "Something wrong, cousin?" she asked, tilting her head. I locked my phone and smiled. Nothing I can't handle. But inside, my thoughts were racing. Who could have sent that message? What did they mean by "took something that wasn't yours"? Then I remembered. A year ago, when I started my company, an investor, Mr. Callan, tried to take credit for my designs after I walked away from his shady deal. I'd reported him, but he disappeared before facing charges. I thought it was over. Maybe it wasn't. I turned to the manager. "Get the car ready. I need to leave in 10 minutes. Grace crossed her arms. "Running away already?" I smiled faintly. "No, Grace, just moving forward. Something you should try sometime." As I walked toward the exit, I stopped beside my parents. They both stood silently, guilt and pride mixing on their faces. Dad spoke first. "Bonnie, I was wrong. About everything." I took a deep breath and nodded. "I know, Dad. But sometimes being wrong is how we finally see things right." Mom reached for my hand. "Can we ever fix this?" I squeezed her fingers gently. "We don't need to fix the past. We just need to stop repeating it." Outside, camera flashes went off. Reporters shouted questions about my company, my success, and my foundation. I gave them one simple answer. Believe in the people you underestimate. They're the ones who change the world quietly. I got into the car, closed the door, and looked out the window one last time. Grace stood in the restaurant doorway, arms folded, still pretending to be in control. I smiled softly. As the car drove off, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the same number. "You won't be able to hide forever." But this time, instead of fear, I felt something else. Strength. I opened my notes app and started typing, Chapter 1, How I Fought Back. Because maybe it was time. Not just to live my story, but to tell it.